power was easiest to fear when it wore a gentle face. Alara had learned that inside Blacktide Bond House, where soft voices gave cruel commands and locked doors were called protection, that was why the open gates of Stormwatch frightened her more than chains would have. She stood outside the coastal fortress, with rain dripping from her hair and salt drying on her torn dress. Behind her, the northern sea struck the cliffs hard enough to shake the ground. Ahead, 2 iron gates waited beneath a wall of black stone. Both gates were open. No guards blocked the road, no chains hung from the towers. Lanterns burned along the path, their flames bending beneath the wind. Alara did not understand what kind of fortress left its entrance open during a storm. She understood even less when a woman stepped from the gatehouse and saw her. The guard's hand moved to her sword. Name. Alara's body straightened before she could stop it. Alara Vey. Where did you come from? Blacktide had taught her what happened to runaways who answered honestly. Alara looked back at the road. There was nowhere to go. The tide had swallowed the beach, and somewhere beyond the rain, riders were searching for her. I was lost. The guard studied the raw skin around Alara's wrists. You were followed. It was not a question. Hoofbeats sounded beyond the lower road. Alara's breath caught. The guard drew her sword, but she did not point it at Alara. Inside. Alara obeyed instantly. The guard noticed. Her eyes narrowed, but she waited until Alara had crossed the threshold before pulling a lever. The iron gates began to close. 3 riders appeared through the rain. Their gray coats carried the broken wave crest of Blacktide Bond House. Stop, one shouted. That Omega belongs to Blacktide. A new voice answered from the wall above them. Nothing living belongs to Blacktide. The words were quiet. The storm should have swallowed them. Somehow, every woman at the gate heard. Alara looked up. Alpha Mara Thorne stood on the battlement without a cloak, tall and motionless beneath the rain. Dark hair had come loose from its braid and whipped across one side of her face. A long black coat followed the severe line of her body. Silver flashed at her throat, not jewelry, but the clasp of Stormwatch. Alara had heard stories about Mara while scrubbing floors at Blacktide, the dominant alpha who ruled the northern sea, the woman who had broken a pirate fleet with 4 ships and returned with all 4. The commander who had once made 3 rival alphas leave a council chamber without drawing a weapon. Blacktide used her name to frighten disobedient Omegas. Keep running, they would say, and Mara Thorne will find you. Now Mara's pale gray eyes rested on the riders. Open the gate, the leader demanded. We have retrieval authority. You have wet paper and poor judgment. She signed a bond. Ilara's stomach turned. Mara looked down at her for the first time. The force of an alpha's attention usually felt like a hand closing around Ilara's throat. Mara's gaze was heavy but controlled. She did not release scent. She did not order Alara to speak. Did you come here willingly? Mara asked. The riders waited. The guards waited. Even the sea seemed to wait. Alara knew the safe answer. She also knew it would send her back. Yes! Mara returned her attention to the road. Then she is under guest protection. The rider laughed. You would risk a trade dispute for one runaway Omega? Mara rested one hand on the wet stone. I would end one for less. The gates met with a sound like thunder. For several seconds, Alara could only stare at the iron seam between them. She had escaped Blacktide. She had crossed the threshold of a feared alpha's fortress. She had no idea which danger was worse. The guard beside her sheathed her sword. I am Captain Sarah Holt. Alara lowered her eyes. Yes, Captain. You are injured. No, Captain. Sarah looked at Alara's bleeding feet. Stormwatch may need to redefine that word. Mara descended from the wall. The guards straightened when she entered the gatehouse, but none looked afraid. She stopped several steps from Alara. Cedar, cold stone, and the sharp, clean scent of rain reached her. The alpha kept it restrained, Yet Alara's instincts still recognized dominance. Her knees weakened. Mara saw it. She stepped back. "Do you need a healer?" Alara searched for the command hidden inside the question. "If you want me to." Mara's expression changed by less than a breath. "That was not what I asked." Alara swallowed. "I don't know." "Then the healer may look. You may refuse treatment." "May refuse." The words made no sense beside an alpha's voice. Mara turned to Sarah. "Ask Talia to prepare the west room." Alara's pulse jumped. "Does it lock?" Mara looked back at her. "From the inside." "And from the outside?" "No." Alara did not believe her. The west room stood high in the fortress, above a courtyard open to the sky. It held a narrow bed, a fireplace, a wash basin, and one arched window overlooking the harbor. The furniture was plain but clean. A dry dress and a thick wool coat had been placed across a chair. Alara checked beneath the bed. She inspected the window latch. She pressed her ear to the wall and listened for guards. Mara watched from the doorway. Alara realized too late that she had been seen. "I'm sorry." "For checking?" "For insulting your hospitality." "Caution is not an insult." Mara placed a brass key on the table. "This opens your room and the west stair." Alara stared at it. "Why give it to me?" "Because the room is yours while you are here." "How long is that?" "You decide." Alara laughed once. It came out thin and broken. "Alphas don't shelter strangers without a price." Mara's eyes became colder, but her voice did not. "Blacktide taught you that?" Alara looked toward the open door. "Blacktide taught me what was true." "Blacktide taught you what served Blacktide." Mara moved the key closer, then withdrew her hand so Alara would not have to reach near her. "You may leave whenever you choose. No one will block the gate. If Blacktide waits beyond it, I advise choosing carefully." "Advice?" "Not an order." Alara touched the key with one finger. "What do you want me to do tonight?" "Eat. Let Talia examine your feet. Sleep if you can." Alara's spine straightened. Mara noticed again. "Those are suggestions." They sounded like commands. "I will tell you when I am commanding you." Fear, and something far more confusing, moved through Alara together. "Why?" "Because you should know when your choice is being tested." Mara turned to leave. "Alpha Thorn?" She stopped. "If I lock the door, will you be angry?" Mara's gaze moved to the key beneath Alara's hand. "No. If I don't?" "Also no." "What would make you angry?" For the first time, something dangerous appeared in Mara's face. "The people who taught you to ask that." She left without closing the door. Alara locked it herself. She slept with the key in her fist. When she woke, sunlight covered the floor, and someone had left breakfast outside. No knock, no voice ordering her to eat, just warm bread, smoked fish, and tea on a tray. Alara waited for 20 minutes. Then 30. Hunger won. She ate half the bread and hid the rest beneath the mattress. The healer came after breakfast. Talia was a middle-aged beta with silver spectacles and practical hands. She asked before touching Alara's wrists. She asked again before cleaning the cuts on her feet. Each question made Alara more uneasy. "You can stop asking," she finally said. Talia paused. "Would that make this easier?" "Yes." "All right. Tell me if you want me to stop." Alara did not understand why choice felt more exhausting than obedience. After Talia left, Sarah took her through Stormwatch. The fortress rose directly from the cliffs, with narrow towers facing the sea and broad inner halls warmed by iron stoves. Women worked everywhere. Betas repaired nets in the courtyard. Alphas trained with the coastal guard. Omegas recorded cargo in the harbor office and argued openly over shipping fees. No one wore a bond collar. No door was locked from the outside. Alara counted. Sarah caught her examining the hinges of a dormitory door. You always inspect exits? Alara stepped back. I notice things. Useful skill. At Blacktide, noticing had earned punishment. At Stormwatch, Sarah handed her a map. Then notice where we keep the kitchens. You look ready to disappear in a strong wind. Alara almost smiled. She did not trust the feeling enough to let it stay. For 6 days, she waited for Stormwatch to reveal its true face. Mara did not summon her. No one demanded work in exchange for food. The gates opened at dawn and remained open until the evening tide. Alara watched servants leave for the village and return carrying purchases, gossip, and flowers. On the 7th morning, she walked as far as the gate. The guard stepped aside. Alara stared at the road descending toward the sea. You're not stopping me? Was I supposed to? I don't know. Alpha Thorn's order is that your exit stays clear. Alara turned. Mara stood beneath the archway, speaking with 2 harbor captains. She looked up at exactly the moment Alara noticed her. The Alpha did not approach. She did not tell Alara to come back. She waited. Beyond the gate lay the road, Blacktide's riders, and a world in which an unbonded Omega had few safe places. Inside lay a fortress ruled by a woman Alara had been taught to fear. Alara closed her fingers around the brass room key. Then she stepped away from the road. Mara said nothing, but the restrained warmth in her scent felt strangely like approval. Alara found the chart room that afternoon. She had followed the smell of salt-damp paper through the eastern tower and discovered a circular room crowded with maps. Charts covered the walls from floor to ceiling. Colored pins marked reefs, patrol routes, fishing grounds, and places where ships had vanished. One map had been left open across the central table. Alara stopped. The inked coastline was familiar. She had copied pieces of it at Blacktide, although the bond house had never explained why. A chain of small marks curved between the northern shoals. To an ordinary reader, they looked like depth measurements. They were wrong. Alara leaned over the table. That reef is half a mile east. Which reef? Mara's voice came from behind her. Alara spun. Her hips struck the table. A brass divider rolled toward the edge, and Mara caught it before it fell. I'm sorry, I didn't know this room was forbidden. It isn't. Mara set down the divider. Show me. The words carried quiet authority. Alara's body moved before thought. She pointed to a hooked line near the Blackstone Shoals. Here, Alpha. Mara did not look at the map. She looked at Alara's hand. Did you choose to obey me? Alara pulled her hand back. You asked me to show you. I gave you a command. Is there a difference? There should be. Mara walked to the opposite side of the table, leaving the exit clear. Do you want to explain what you noticed? Alara studied her face. The request was real. She could refuse. Yes. Mara waited. Alara pointed again, more slowly this time. The chart says the reef begins here, but the current line bends too sharply. Water doesn't turn like that unless something redirects it. The real shelf must be farther east. Mara followed the line. Our surveyors checked it in spring. At low northern tide? Morning tide. Then they measured the surface pull, not the deep current. Mara's eyes lifted. How do you know? Alara hesitated. Blacktide had used her skill and punished her for being proud of it. Knowledge was permitted only when it made her useful. I grew up in a harbor village. My mother read tide books for fishing crews. She taught me before she died. And Blacktide? They made me copy shipping charts. Mara's jaw tightened. Did they know you could read them? Not at first. And later? Alara touched the fading bruise at her wrist. Mara's anger entered the room like an approaching storm. Cedar sharpened. Rain filled the air. Alara recoiled. The anger vanished at once. Mara stepped back and opened both hands. Not at you. Alara could not breathe. Mara lowered her voice. Look at the door. The command cut through panic. Alara's eyes moved to the open archway. Can you reach it? Yes. Am I blocking you? No. Do you want me to leave? The answer should have been yes. Alara looked at the map, then at the Alpha who had pulled back her anger, because Alara was afraid. No. Mara's scent softened. Good. The praise landed low and warm inside Alara. Her cheeks heated. Mara noticed that too. You liked being praised. No. One dark eyebrow rose. Alara looked away. Maybe. That sounded almost honest. Do you always make guests uncomfortable? Only observant ones. Alara stared at the map, so Mara would not see the beginning of a smile. Mara called Sarah into the chart room. Together, they compared the disputed map with 3 older surveys. Alara found the error in all of them. A harbor mark had been forged, then copied from one chart to the next, until the false position became accepted fact. Sarah whistled. A ship following this route at moonless high tide would miss the patrol line and pass behind the reef, Alara said. Mara studied the narrow channel. Could a cargo vessel survive it? A shallow one could. Could you map it? Alara met her gaze. If I choose to. Approval warmed Mara's scent again. If you choose to. Alara did. If Alara's first real choice at Stormwatch has pulled you in, subscribe and tell me whether you would have trusted Mara yet. Keep listening, because the command that changes everything is still waiting in the storm. For the next week, Alara worked in the chart room. No one called it payment for shelter. Mara offered wages, and when Alara tried to refuse, Mara placed the coin ledger in front of her. Your work has value. I already owe you food and a room. You owe me nothing. That isn't how the world works. It is how this fortress works. Alara folded her arms. And if I refuse the wages? Mara leaned back in her chair. Then the money remains yours until you are ready to take it. You make arguing very difficult. I have been told. Working beside Mara was worse than fearing her from a distance. Alara began to notice things she did not want to notice. The care Mara used when handling old paper, the way she listened without interrupting, the small scar crossing her lower lip, the rare softness in her eyes when Alara solved a problem no one else had seen. Mara noticed Alara too. She noticed when Alara skipped lunch. She noticed when a slammed door made her flinch. She noticed how direct commands settled her restless instincts even while they frightened her. One evening, Alara had spent hours recalculating a current table. The numbers blurred, but stopping felt impossible. Black tide had punished unfinished work. Mara entered and took in the cold tea, the burnt-down candle, and Alara's shaking hand. Rest. Alara's pencil stopped. Her shoulders lowered. The frantic noise inside her became quiet. Then shame followed the relief. She dropped the pencil. Don't. Mara went still. Don't what? Make me like it. Like what? Obeying you. Mara's expression remained controlled, but her scent deepened. Come away from the table. Alara stood immediately. Mara's eyes hardened, not with anger at Alara, but at herself. No. Alara froze. What did I do? Nothing. I did. Mara moved toward the door and stopped where the sea wind cooled the room. I gave a second command before learning whether you wanted the first. You told me to rest. And your body obeyed before you chose. Alara pressed her palms together. Isn't that what an alpha wants? Not this alpha. Why not? Mara held her gaze. Because submission without the power to refuse is surrender taken by force. I wasn't forced. Can you say no to me? Alara opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Mara waited. Alara's pulse became painful. I don't know. Then I have no right to ask for your obedience. The loss inside Alara surprised her. Never? Mara's gaze dropped briefly to Alara's mouth, then returned to her eyes. Not until yes belongs to you. The next morning, Mara placed a cup on the chart table. Drink. Alara reached for it. Stop. Her hand halted in the air. Mara looked displeased. Again. I don't understand. I am going to give you an order. Refuse it. Alara stared at her. Why? Because I need to know you can. Mara nudged the cup closer. Drink. Alara's fingers twitched. No. The word was barely sound. Mara's eyes warmed. Good. Relief moved through Alara so quickly it felt like pleasure. Mara noticed. Again. Give me the map. Alara gripped it. No. Good. Open the curtain. Alara's muscles prepared to move. She held still. No. Very good. Alara's face heated. You are praising me for disobeying. Does that bother you? It confuses me. Confusion can be survived. You sound certain. I usually am. Alara looked at the untouched cup. What if I want to drink now? Then drink. Is that a command? No. Alara lifted the cup and drank because she was thirsty. Mara smiled. The refusal lessons continued. They began with small things and ended whenever Alara asked. Mara never used scent pressure. She never punished hesitation. Each no was received as proof, not rejection. They wrote the rules together. Mara would give no serious command in anger. She would never deliberately press her scent against Alara's instincts. She would not touch Alara during panic without permission. She would never block an exit. If Alara said harbor, every command and every touch would stop immediately. Alara had rules too. She would answer honestly when Mara asked if she was afraid. She would eat before working through the night. She would not hide injuries. In danger, if she chose Mara's protection, she would obey a safety command at once. That last rule benefits you, Alara said. It keeps you alive. Still convenient. Mara's mouth curved. Say no. No. Good girl. Silence filled the room. Alara's breath stopped. Heat moved from her throat to her chest. Mara's smile disappeared. Too much? Alara could have lied. Instead, she made herself meet Mara's eyes. No. The alpha's scent deepened, cedar darkened by rain. Do you want me to say it again? Alara's voice became a whisper. Not yet. Mara nodded. Then I won't. The restraint in that answer followed Alara long after she left the room. The storm arrived 3 nights later. It struck without warning. Wind screamed around the towers. Waves climbed the cliffs and burst against the lower walls. Bells rang across Stormwatch as the harbor guards secured the ships. Alara woke to thunder and remembered Blacktide. Not the dormitory, the punishment room beneath the west stairs. Rain had beaten the roof on the night they locked her there. A command had come through the dark. Come. She had obeyed. Now her body moved before she knew where she was going. She left the west room barefoot. She crossed the courtyard through driving rain. Every flash of lightning turned the fortress into Blacktide's stone halls. She needed air. She needed silence. She reached the upper cliff path. The sea waited below, black and violent. One more step would take her beyond the wall. Alara. Mara stood at the end of the path, soaked by rain. She did not come closer. Alara could barely see her. Go away. No. Please. I won't leave you alone at the edge. Alara's heel slipped on wet stone. Gravel vanished into the dark. Mara's body tensed. Don't touch me. I won't. Thunder broke overhead. Alara flinched toward the drop. Mara's voice stayed calm. I can help, but I need your permission. Alara shook so hard her teeth hurt. I can't think. Then answer one question. Mara took one slow breath. May I take control? Alara saw the open path behind Mara. She remembered the key in her room. The gate that had not closed around her. Every no Mara had accepted. The choice was still hers. Alara nodded. Mara's dominance entered her voice, firm enough to reach through the storm. Stay. Alara stopped. The wind pulled at her wet dress, the sea roared below, but the command held one clear point inside the chaos. Stay. Not because the door was locked, not because refusal would bring pain. Stay, because Mara was asking her to live. Alara pressed one hand to her chest. Breathe. She dragged in air. Again. She obeyed. Mara did not move until Alara's eyes found hers. May I come closer? Alara nodded. Mara took one step. Again? Yes. Another step. May I touch you? Alara reached first. Mara caught her hand and pulled her away from the edge. Alara fell against the alpha's chest, shaking, and strong arms surrounded her only after she clutched Mara's coat. Cedar and rain filled her lungs. The command remained inside her, but it no longer felt like imprisonment. It felt like an anchor. Mara took Alara to the watchroom above the western tower. A fire burned there, and Sarah left blankets outside the door without asking questions. Alara sat on the floor with her back against the wall. Mara remained several feet away. You can come closer, Alara said. Are you sure? Yes. Mara crossed the room and sat beside her, close enough for warmth but not touching. For a while, they listened to the storm. I went to the cliff, Alara whispered. You were reliving something. That doesn't excuse it. You don't need an excuse for being wounded. Alara pulled the blanket around her shoulders. At Black Tide, they said panic was manipulation. Mara's hand tightened against her own knee. They lied. They said an Omega who could not control herself needed control forced on her. They lied. They said it often enough that I believed them. Mara turned toward her. Look at me. Alara's pulse jumped. Mara immediately softened the words. Only if you want to. Alara chose to lift her eyes. Surviving cruelty does not make their version of you true. Alara blinked against sudden tears. What version do you see? A woman who crossed half the coast barefoot, a map reader who found an error my best surveyors missed, an Omega who said no while every instinct told her not to. Mara's gaze held hers. And someone I almost lost tonight. The last words were rougher than the rest. Alara touched Mara's clenched hand. The alpha went still. You're afraid? Yes. Alara had never heard an alpha admit fear without turning it into anger. Of me? For you. Mara unfolded her hand beneath Alara's fingers. My instincts wanted to drag you away from that edge. But you asked. I will always ask unless waiting would cost your life. And then? Mara's eyes darkened. Then I will command you to survive and answer for it afterward. Alara's body warmed beneath the blanket. I think I would obey. I know. That is why I must be careful. What if I don't want you to be careful all the time? The storm seemed to recede. Mara watched her. Tell me what you mean. Alara's courage nearly failed. When you told me to stay, I felt safe. You were in danger. It wasn't only that. Mara waited. Alara could feel the power she kept locked beneath her control. She could also feel the open door behind them. I want to know what obedience feels like when it belongs to me. Mara's scent deepened, cedar warmed by something intimate. And what do you want from me? Teach me. The alpha's voice dropped. That is not a small request. I know. You may change your mind. I know. You may refuse any command. I know. And if you say harbor, everything stops. Mara's expression softened. Good. Alara's breath caught at the praise. Mara looked at her mouth. May I kiss you? Alara had imagined the alpha taking. She had not imagined how powerful it would feel to be asked. Yes. Mara touched her cheek first, giving her time to retreat. Alara leaned into the warmth. Only then did Mara kiss her. It was slow, controlled, and gentler than anything about Mara Thorne should have been. Alara tasted rain. Her fingers closed around the alpha's coat. When Mara began to pull away, Alara followed. Mara stopped. Tell me. Alara opened her eyes. Again. The second kiss carried more hunger, but never more than Alara invited. When it ended, Mara rested her forehead against hers. Still safe? Yes. Still your choice? Alara smiled through the last of her tears. Yes, Alpha. Mara's control nearly broke. Alara felt it in the sudden richness of her scent. Careful. Why? Because I like hearing that far too much. Good. Mara gave a quiet, surprised laugh. By morning, the storm had torn 2 ships from their moorings and scattered wreckage along the northern coast. No one at Stormwatch died. Alara spent the next day in the chart room, helping the harbor guard calculate where the currents would carry missing cargo. Something in the storm records troubled her. She laid 3 charts beside one another. Each had been made in a different year. Each showed the same false harbor mark behind Blackstone Reef, but now Alara recognized the symbol beside it. A small crescent cut by a horizontal line. Her hands went cold. Mara entered carrying 2 bowls of stew. You missed lunch. Alara pointed to the symbol. I copied this at black tide. Mara set down the bowls. On shipping charts? On transfer lists. The room became very still. What kind of transfers? Alara searched her memory. They made me copy names, dates, compatibility ratings, and a harbor mark. I thought the mark identified the receiving house. It identifies a route. Yes. Mara moved beside her without touching. Show me. This time, Alara heard the command and chose it. She traced the false channel from Blackstone Reef toward the coast. At high tide, a shallow vessel could pass the patrol line, enter a sea cave, and emerge near a hidden inlet, less than 2 miles from black tide. Sarah joined them with confiscated harbor records. Alara found the same crescent in the margins. The official cargo was lamp oil, grain, and cloth. The listed weights changed between ports without explanation. Those ships are carrying something else, Sarah said. Alara looked at the columns. People. Mara's face became hard enough to frighten the sea. How can you tell? Food stores. Alara placed one manifest over another. The cargo weight is false, but the water and dried food are real. Each vessel takes enough extra supplies for 10 or 12 passengers. Sarah swore. Mara examined the dates. The next moonless tide is in 8 days. Alara read the final column. There were 6 initials beside the next departure. One of them belonged to a young Omega who had slept in the bed beside hers at black tide. Leo. Mara looked at her. You know her? She is 19. She thinks black tide is sending her to kitchen service. Alara pushed away from the table. We have to stop the ship. We will. And free the women inside black tide. Mara's silence lasted too long. Alara turned. You were only planning to seize the vessel. I was planning to secure evidence before black tide destroys it. They will move the captives. Which is why we proceed carefully. Carefully is what every council says while Omegas disappear. Mara's gaze sharpened. Do not mistake control for indifference. Then do something. I am. Without me. Mara did not answer. Alara understood. You want me to stay at Stormwatch? Yes. No. The refusal landed between them. Mara's instincts pressed against her control. Alara saw the Alpha's desire to command, protect, and confine danger somewhere it could not reach her. Mara took one slow breath. You are too close to this. That is why you need me. That is why returning may break you. You don't get to use my wounds to make my choices. Mara went still. Ilara's fear arrived after the words, but she held her ground. I know Black Tide's halls. I know its ledgers, I can identify forged marks, and I know where they keep the tide schedules. And I know what it did to you. Not all of it. Pain crossed Mara's face. Ilara continued before courage failed. You taught me that a locked door is still a cage when someone claims it is for my safety. Do not build one around Stormwatch. Mara turned toward the window. Waves broke white beneath the cliffs. For a long time, neither spoke. Then Mara faced her. I am afraid. Ilara's anger softened. So am I. My instincts are telling me to put you behind 3 walls and guard every gate. Your rules forbid that. I am beginning to resent my rules. Ilara almost smiled. I am not. Mara came closer, stopping outside Ilara's reach. If you go, it will be because you choose the risk with full knowledge. Yes. You remain with me or Sarah. Yes. You carry a flare and a blade. Yes. If panic starts, you tell me. Ilara hesitated. Mara raised an eyebrow. Yes, Alpha. If I give a safety command during an attack? I obey immediately. Because I am stronger? No. Because you are an Omega? No. Then why? Ilara stepped into the space between them and placed Mara's hand over her heartbeat. Because I trust you with the choice. Mara closed her eyes for one brief moment. When she opened them, the feared Alpha had returned, controlled and decisive. Then we go together. They sailed before dawn on the 8th day. Stormwatch's black-sailed cutter carried Mara, Ilara, Sarah, and 12 guards. Another vessel waited beyond Blackstone Reef to intercept the smuggling ship. The sea was calm, but Ilara knew calm water could hide a killing current. She stood at the bow with the stolen manifests beneath her coat. Mara joined her. Cold? A little. Mara held out a gloved hand. Come closer. Ilara heard the command and the question inside it. She chose to step beneath Mara's cloak. The Alpha wrapped it around them. Still want to go? Yes. Still afraid? Ilara watched the dark shape of the coast. Yes. Good. She looked up. Good? Fear noticed is safer than fear denied. That sounds like something Talia would say. She has been correcting me for 15 years. I like her. Everyone does. It is inconvenient. Ilara smiled, then saw black tide above the inlet. The smile vanished. The bond house sat behind a pale stone wall. From the sea, it looked almost peaceful. Ilara knew the narrow dormitories, the obedience rooms, the staircases where Omegas learned to walk silently. Mara felt her body stiffen. Tell me what you need. Ilara wanted an order. She wanted Mara's voice to turn the world into one clear path, but the first decision had to remain hers. I need to finish this. Then we finish it. They entered through the lower harbor after Sarah presented a council warrant. Black Tide's guards surrendered their visible weapons. Ilara knew visible meant nothing there. Director Isolde Vane waited in the receiving hall. She wore gray silk and a silver broken wave pin. Her pale hair was pulled into the same severe knot Ilara remembered. Her scent carried bitter herbs and deliberate alpha pressure. Isolde smiled. Ilara Vey. Every muscle in Ilara's body remembered that voice. Mara moved half a step closer, not in front of her. Director Vane, Mara said, you will provide all transfer ledgers and access to every resident. On the strength of forged accusations from a runaway? Ilara found her voice. The forged marks are yours. Isolde's gaze shifted to her. You were always clever. It made discipline difficult. Mara's scent sharpened, then disappeared behind iron control. Where are the 6 women scheduled for transfer? There is no transfer. The ship waiting beyond the sea caves disagrees. For the first time, Isolde's smile weakened. Sarah led half the guards toward the record office. Mara stayed with Alara as they crossed the familiar hall. Doors opened along the corridor. Omegas looked out, then quickly lowered their eyes when they saw two alphas. Alara stopped beside a young woman carrying folded sheets. "Where is Leo?" The Omega glanced toward Isolde. "Answer her," Isolde said. The young woman flinched. Alara hated the sound of obedience in her frightened breath. "You don't have to look at her," Alara said. "Look at me." The Omega slowly raised her eyes. "Where is Leo?" "Below the tide room." Isolde's face changed. Mara saw it. "Take us there." "There is no lower level." Alara walked toward the west stairs. Blacktide had changed the carpet and painted the walls. It had not changed the faint pull of cold air beneath the panel beside the tide room. She pressed 2 fingers into a carved wave. A section of wall opened. Stone steps descended into darkness. Mara looked at Isolde. "You were saying?" They found the ledgers first. Names, ages, scent profiles, prices, and shipping routes filled 6 shelves. Sarah's guards documented every page. Beyond the records room stood a barred iron door. Alara's breath shortened. Mara did not touch her. "Do we stop?" Alara listened. Someone coughed behind the door. "No." Mara broke the lock. 6 Omegas waited inside. Leo sat on the floor with one arm around the smallest of them. She looked thinner than Alara remembered, but her eyes were the same fierce brown. "Alara?" Alara crossed the room. Leo rose and held her so tightly it hurt. "They said you drowned." They lied. They said no one would shelter a disobedient Omega. Alara looked back at Mara. The feared Alpha stood outside the cell so her presence would not crowd the captives. They lied about that too. Mara ordered her guards to open every room and escort the residents into the courtyard. She asked the Omegas where they wanted to go. Some chose Stormwatch, some named relatives. 2 wanted only to reach the next village and make the rest of the decision later. No one chose Blacktide. Isolde watched her institution empty. "You think choices make them safe?" she asked. Alara turned. "No. Choices make them free. Freedom is wasted on frightened creatures." "That is what you needed us to believe." Isolde's scent expanded. The corridor filled with bitter dominance. Nearby Omegas went still. One dropped to her knees. Mara stepped forward, but Alara raised a hand. She needed this refusal to be hers. Isolde focused all her pressure on Alara. Her voice carried the same cold authority that had ruled every year of Alara's life inside those walls. "Come back." Alara's instincts screamed. "Return. Bow. Obey." She remembered the punishment room. She remembered the open gates of Stormwatch. She remembered Mara asking permission in the storm. Alara looked directly into Isolde's eyes. "No." The word did not shake. Pride warmed the air behind her. Mara did not speak. She let Alara's refusal stand alone. Isolde's face twisted. "You ungrateful little traitor." A bell rang beneath the floor. Sarah drew her sword. "Ambush." The side doors burst open. Hidden guards rushed into the corridor, blades drawn. At the same moment, smoke poured from the record room. Isolde had planned to burn the evidence. Mara moved between Alara and the first attacker. "Stay behind me." Alara obeyed instantly. There was no shame in it. No confusion. Mara's command became a clear line through danger, and Alara chose to follow it. Steel struck steel. Mara drove one attacker back, while Sarah blocked the stair. Alara remained behind Mara until she saw smoke crawling along the ceiling toward the captives. The lower passage would become a furnace. "Mara!" The Alpha disarmed a guard and looked back. Alara pointed to a drainage hatch beside the tide wall. "The sea caves. We can take everyone out below. The tide is rising. I know the route." Mara held off another attacker. "Can you lead them?" Alara heard the question even in battle. Yes. Sarah, go with her. Alara stayed close until Mara opened a path. Then she reached the hatch and read the old harbor marks carved into the stone. Black Tide had used the caves to hide trafficking ships. Now Alara would use them to free the women Black Tide tried to sell. She guided the captives through waist-deep water. Red marks warned of dead ends, white marks showed air pockets. The forged crescent pointed toward the hidden inlet. Behind them, the tide room filled with smoke. Leo stumbled. Alara caught her. Stay with me. Leo nodded. The water climbed from their waists to their ribs. Panic spread through the group. Alara remembered Mara's voice on the cliff. The passage rises ahead. Keep one hand on the wall. You are not trapped. One by one, the women followed. They emerged beneath the inlet as Stormwatch's second vessel entered the cove. Guards lifted the captives aboard. Alara turned back. Mara had not come out. I have to go back. Sarah caught her shoulder, then released it immediately. The tunnel is flooding. I know where the high ledge is. Alara. Mara's voice carried through the cave. She appeared from the smoke with 2 guards and a bound Isolde Vane. Water surged around their knees. Alara's relief nearly dropped her. Mara reached her and checked her face, shoulders and hands without touching. Hurt? No. Certain? Yes. The others? All 6 are aboard. The residents from upstairs are in the courtyard with Sarah's unit. Mara looked through the cave at the rescued women. You led them out. You kept the path open. Mara's control softened into fierce pride. Good girl. This time, Alara did not hide her response. Thank you, Alpha. Isolde laughed bitterly behind them. She traded one master for another. Mara went cold. Alara stepped close enough to take Mara's hand. No. She looked at the woman who had once owned every answer she was allowed to give. I chose someone worthy of my trust. At high tide, Black Tide's smuggling vessel entered the hidden channel and found Stormwatch waiting. Its crew surrendered. The ledgers survived the fire, the harbor marks matched the seized charts, and the captives gave testimony before the Northern Council. Black Tide Bond House closed before the next moon. Its director would never command another Omega again. The rescued women received rooms, money, medical care, and the right to decide what came next. Some stayed at Stormwatch. Others returned home. Leo joined Sarah's harbor guard and proved almost immediately that she was better at arguing with captains than anyone alive. Alara received an office in the Eastern Tower. Mara called her Stormwatch's chief tide reader in front of the entire Coastal Council. Alara corrected her. Chief Navigator. Mara raised an eyebrow. You have been in the position for 1 day. Then it is fortunate I improved the title quickly. Several council members tried not to smile. Mara failed to hide hers. Chief Navigator Alara Vey, then. Alara used Black Tide's maps to dismantle every remaining smuggling route along the Northern Sea. She trained harbor readers to recognize forged marks and created a registry that tracked missing vessels without tracking the private movements of Omegas. She was no longer evidence in someone else's investigation. She was the woman leading it. Weeks later, Alara found Mara waiting beside Stormwatch's open gates at sunset. Spring had softened the wind, and the sea below reflected bands of silver and gold. Mara held a small black box. Alara stopped. Should I be afraid? Probably. That is not reassuring. I command fleets. Small boxes are more difficult. Alara came closer. May I see? Mara opened the box. Inside lay a silver key pendant on a fine chain. It matched the brass key Mara had given Alara on her first night, down to the small notch near its teeth. Alara touched it. What does it open? Nothing. A poorly designed key. It is a reminder. Mara lifted the chain. Your room was never a cage. Neither is this fortress. Neither am I. Her confidence faltered for the first time Alara had ever seen. I love you. Still very much grieving the loss, and set herself to the task of finding a dry place to stand. Still very much grieving the loss, Alara's throat tightened. Still very much grieving the loss, Alara's throat tightened. Mara glanced at the open road. Do you want to stay? She asked. She did not order. Alara looked beyond the gates. She could leave. She had wages, work, friends, and a name respected in every northern harbor. No rider waited to drag her back. No locked door stood behind her. She was free. That was what made the answer matter. Alara took the pendant, then placed it back in Mara's hand. She turned and lifted her hair. Put it on me. Mara did not move. Your choice? My choice. Still safe? Yes. Mara fastened the chain. The silver key rested above Alara's heart. Alara turned, then lowered herself to her knees on the open road. Mara's breath caught. Alara, I'm not afraid. I know. I don't owe you. You never did. And I can stand whenever I choose. Mara's eyes shone. Always. Alara looked up at the dominant alpha who had taught her to refuse, protected every boundary, and waited for every choice. Then ask me again. Mara stepped closer. Will you stay? Alara smiled. I already chose to. Mara touched her cheek. May I? Alara leaned into her hand. Yes, Alpha. Mara bent and kissed her beneath the open gates. When she drew back, Alara remained on her knees because she wanted to, not because anyone had taken away her right to stand. For years, stay had meant a locked room, an erased future, and a command she could not refuse. At Stormwatch, it meant Mara's hand offered instead of imposed. It meant a fortress with open gates, a room with a key, and obedience given only where trust had been earned. Stay was not a cage when the door was hers to open. Which moment made you believe Alara was staying by choice?